Alexei Navalny, the main leader of the Russian opposition, passed away on February 16, 2024. He did not die of natural causes. He was killed by the man who feared him more than anything else in the world. Alexei Navalny was killed by Vladimir Putin. Navalny's death felt like a personal tragedy to a great many people, the majority of whom did not know him personally. That is because he was that kind of person. Regardless of whether people agreed with him or not, everyone felt like he was always talking to them personally. It wasn't necessarily what he said, but the way he said it. No one could doubt that he wasn't just close to the people, but he was one of the people. Wanting to build a free and prosperous Russia wasn't just a political tool for Navalny, because more than anything, he wanted to live in that Russia. After all, Alexei was the first politician who used crowdfunding as the only source of income for his campaign for mayor of Moscow in 2013. All of that made people feel that Navalny wasn't just a politician who wanted to get popular. He was like a friend or even a family member. He wasn't always fair, but there was nothing he welcomed more than dialogue and challenge. Even while in prison, he insisted on not being treated as though he was deprived of information from the outside world. He wrote letters in which he urged others to argue with him as if he was standing right in front of their eyes. The thought that he will never actually stand in front of anyone again or argue with them is heart-wrenching. And there are no words that could possibly describe the feeling of realizing that Alexei will never say a kind word again either, or proclaim that Russia will be free, or post another photo of his jog around Moscow. Alexei Navalny was uncompromising, maybe not always about the right things or to his own advantage, but his spirit of never settling for less was contagious. So many people live in Russia with a sense of hopelessness. Whenever the government would cheat him out of money or never follow through on promises to develop gas infrastructure in remote regions, people would react along the lines of, "What else should we expect from our government?" Navalny taught him that not only should they expect better from their supposed representatives, but demand that these politicians do better. It was during one such campaign, when Alexei went around Russia and rallied people to stand up for their rights, that he was poisoned in 2020. A group of FSB operatives trailed him to the Siberian city of Tomsk, where they used the Novichok nerve agent on him. Alexei Navalny was invincible. His wife Yulia fought tooth and nail to have the authorities release him so that he could undergo treatment abroad. Navalny survived the poisoning attack and recuperated at the Charité clinic in Berlin. Before that, he survived another attack when a Kremlin agent threw acid on him and he had to get one of his eyes operated on, sustaining damage to the retina. Prior to that, someone threw antiseptic green dye on him. Navalny was detained countless times, was placed under house arrest multiple times, and received suspended sentences on fabricated and politically motivated charges. One could argue that these were signals telling him to stop his political activities, but the number of these cases is so great that it was obviously cowardice on the Kremlin's part to do anything substantial. Moreover, it would have been naive to think that Navalny could have been stopped even by using such methods. He not only survived the poisoning in 2020, but having regained enough strength, he went after his attackers and found out who they were. But he didn't stop there. Navalny called the people that poisoned him and got them to admit to their crime. He then challenged the Kremlin even more boldly when he announced that he was returning to Moscow while also preparing a secret weapon in the meantime. Policemen came for Navalny as soon as his plane landed and detained him after he went through customs. Soon after, he was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months in prison for not showing up for his mandatory check-ins with the prosecutor on account of almost dying. While that was happening, Navalny's allies unveiled the secret weapon. It was an investigation into Putin's luxurious palace in South Russia. This film amassed more than 100 million views. While the majority of the findings weren't surprising, that was not the main effect of the documentary. It dealt Putin perhaps the most severe blow that he'd ever experienced. He was revealed for who he was, an aging pathetic mafioso with poor taste and illusions of grandeur. Many young people grew up with Navalny as the definition of what a politician is. He set a high standard of transparency, honesty, and determination that none of the politicians in government could possibly live up to. Young people understood from the very start that change was overdue, and it was Navalny that opened their eyes. Putin was never in competition with Navalny because compared to him, the ex-KGB agent was an old man who not only didn't want change, but was holding on to his power with such strength that even Gollum would be envious. They even have the same hairstyle. Current 20 and 30-year-olds likely first got acquainted with politics through Navalny's investigations into the corruption in state-owned or affiliated companies. He would become a minority shareholder in these businesses, by virtue of which he would make them report their financials to him. Navalny then conducted research which showed that these companies were clearly involved in corruption schemes. To the older generations, Navalny was a reminder of the democratization of the late 80s, when the spirit of freedom and democracy was the strongest. Not everyone remembered these times fondly, but Navalny was able to sway these people too, and get them to believe that a truly free and just Russia can and should exist. Most people first learned of Navalny at the 2011 and 2012 protests demanding free and fair elections. It was then that Navalny called the ruling party, United Russia, the party of cheats and thieves, and all but privatized the phrase one for all and all for one. People saw a young, determined, and sincere person who wanted to fight for everyone's rights, and who didn't draw a line between himself and the people. People believed him because Alexei fought for a better country and, most of all, for his family, for his wife Yulia, with whom he was inseparable, for their children Dasha and Zakhar, for his brother Oleg, who was taken hostage by the regime and made to serve 3.5 years in prison, for his parents Ludmila and Anatoly, who raised him to be a fighter for a better future. The Wall Street Journal came out with a headline that read, "Alexei Navalny's death marks end of political dissent in Russia." And nothing could be more wrong. The absolute last thing that Navalny would have wanted is for the fight for a better Russia to be over if he were to be killed. Alexei would have wanted for the fight to grow fiercer and stronger in the event of his passing. He was killed for a simple reason. Navalny was brave, and Putin was envious of that. Putin built a regime in Russia that is founded on nothing but fear, because he himself is afraid of everything. And in his mind, if he is afraid, that everyone else also has to live in fear. Alexei Navalny committed the worst crime of all. He refused to be afraid. But he went even further and taught other people how to stop being afraid. Navalny laughed at the fakes of fear and at all the ways in which the government tried to put him down. Everyone will remember his sarcastic sense of humor and irony, which proved to be one of the most effective weapons against tyranny, by making it look laughable. He would engage in playful dialogue with people who were spying on him. The last thing that we heard Navalny say, which was hours before his death, was one of his signature jokes. All of that did wonders to combat fear and doubt in Russian society. Now that Alexei was taken away from us, we owe him one thing. We must never be made afraid again. Rest in peace, Alexei. We won't give up.